Have you ever found yourself in a position to where you're trying to help your loved one who is addicted to drugs or alcohol or anything for that matter, only to find yourself struggling and really frustrated with the situation, and ultimately you are the one that feels like you're suffering the most consequences? In this video, I want to help you with a few tips that is just going to help you understand the situation, ultimately help yourself, and also help your loved one as well. It's very important that we understand how to navigate these situations. So I'm just going to give you a few tips to help you get through the current situation that you are in. Hey everyone, my name is Tom Conrad. Thank you for tuning in. I am a certified addictions counselor here in the state of Florida, and my ultimate mission for this channel is to help you navigate addiction, whether it's yourself or you have a loved one or somebody very close to you that struggles with addiction. I want to help you understand more as to how we navigate addiction. Addiction isn't something that we need to shy away from. It is something that we need to embrace. So if you have somebody in your life that is addicted to drugs or alcohol and you're extremely frustrated, you don't know what to do, and you're ripping your hair out and all the crazy stories that I hear from parents and loved ones, the stuff that you have to go through is terrible. The first thing that I want you to understand is that they weren't always this way. You know that. You probably took your son or daughter to baseball games, t-ball games, different family outings, stuff when they were just little bitty children. They obviously weren't drug addicts. They weren't alcoholics at that time. So understand that there is a baseline that we want to get back to. We ultimately want them to be better. We don't want them to be the way that they are. So keep your eye on the prize, per se. Understand that my loved one, my son or daughter, or whomever it may be, if you're a spouse, unless you married into this and you married somebody that was addicted to drugs and alcohol and you knew that, you probably shouldn't have married them to begin with, but chances are they weren't addicted to something whenever you got married. So understand that you can help get them back to where they once were, and ultimately that will help inspire you to continue to take the steps necessary in order to help navigate the situation properly. The second thing that I would recommend is that you have to set clear guidelines. You have to have clear boundaries, not only with yourself, but with your addict loved one. A lot of times these situations end up spiraling out of control, and it is for the simple fact that parents, loved ones, they have such a hard time setting boundaries for the fear of that they're going to lose control. That's ultimately what the biggest fear is that if I don't control the situation, what's going to happen? Well, I have news for you. You can't control the situation, and if you continue to try, you're just going to drive yourself crazy. So set some guidelines, set some boundaries, not only with yourself, but with your loved one. What does that look like, you might ask? Well, if you have a son or a daughter that is off to college and you obviously want them to pursue school, you want them to further their education, but they're spending more time partying than they are studying. Hey, listen, I want you to go to college. I want you to further your education, but obviously that's not priority for you right now. So we're going to put a pause on things, and we're not going to pay for your school if you're not going to actually try to do well in school. And, that's on you. That apartment that you're living in that we are paying the bill for, we're not going to pay for it anymore. The car that you drive that we pay for the insurance for, we're not going to pay for it anymore. The cell phone, we're not going to pay for it anymore. Oftentimes, you have to hit them in their pocket. That's just the reality of it. And you'll say, well, Tom, if I cut their cell phone off, then I won't be able to know where they are. I won't be able to track them. I won't understand what's happening, what's going on. I get it. I understand. And that's why I tell parents all the time, this is going to be one of the hardest things that you've ever had to do for yourself. But ultimately, it's unfortunately something that you can't bypass. You're going to have to do this unless whoever it is, your loved one, is, willing to get the help that they need right out of the gate. Then you may not have to do these things. But ultimately, 9 times out of 10, this is what has to happen. Now, what does it look like setting guidelines and boundaries for yourself? Well, I am not going to participate in this type of behavior. What does that look like? You're ultimately participating by financially assisting them with things, whether it be car, apartment, cell phone, food, whatever the case is. You can't. That has to be a boundary that you're going to have to set with yourself. I'm not going to participate in this financially. I'm not going to participate in this emotionally. Well, how does that work? I had a client one time that came into our center, and the parents told me everything, all the conversations that would take place between them and their son. And hearing the conversations, I automatically knew what was going on. They were manipulating, they were doing everything. It was just textbook addiction. And I told the parents, listen, unfortunately, you are not at fault, but you're guilty in the sense of you participate in this stuff. Because a lot of times you are incapable of having a constructive, productive conversation with your addict. A lot of times these conversations end up turning into screaming matches at each other, pointing the finger at one another. Well, if you would have done this, and if you would have done that, I wouldn't be this way, so on and so forth. And that's ultimately what happens when these conversations come up. And it's emotionally draining for both parties. So that's what I mean when setting boundaries with yourself. Look, I'm going to remove myself from this situation. I'm not going to get into this with you. I need to protect myself and my own well-being and my own sanity. And the only way that I can do that is to not have a conversation around this. You know where I stand with this situation. And until you're ready to make a change, I'm out. I love you. I want to support you. But until you're ready to take that from me, I can't participate in any further conversation, because it ultimately doesn't do anything. It is just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And yeah, so you have to set guidelines. You have to set boundaries with yourself financially, emotionally. Maybe you have to set boundaries and guidelines with yourself too on a spiritual level. A lot of spiritual people, it's funny, spiritual people generally have an easier time handling these situations than people that don't have any sort of concept of a higher power or some sort of spirituality that they rely on. Because spirituality, not only for the addict, is something that we kind of hinge on. It's important. So tell yourself, allow yourself, hey, listen, for my own sanity, my own well-being, I'm going to get plugged back into my church. I'm going to get plugged back in with, my small group, whatever that looks like. I'm going to get more engaged in prayer, meditation, these sorts of things, because ultimately it's for you. You have to learn to help yourself. And you helping yourself ultimately ends up helping the other person as well. Ultimately, that's one of the best things that you can do. A couple more things I want to touch is seeking guidance from other people. Do not try and do this alone. You will be unsuccessful. Now, what does success look like in this? That's for a different topic, a different video. But you need to have people around you that have navigated this situation before. They've been in this situation with their son, their daughter, their spouse, their aunt, uncle, whatever, and they've gotten to the other side. They know what they did and what worked for them. And those people are willing to help. I had a conversation with a mom just a couple days ago, and she spent so much time pouring into her loved one that is struggling with addiction that she forgot herself. She never surrounded herself with people. She never got positive reinforcement. Hey, you're doing the right thing. You're doing a good thing. She was constantly just getting drained and drained and drained. And ultimately, I spoke to her. She's in tears. Didn't know what to do anymore. She didn't. She was just empty. And I told her, I said, listen, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to find other women that have gone through this. You need to have people around you. You need people to circle around you and help lift you up. Help give you words of encouragement. Tell you that you're doing the good thing. You're doing everything that you're supposed to do. And with things that you're not doing the way that you're supposed to do, let them guide you. Because ultimately, I can't help everybody. I can't get on the phone with everybody and help them navigate all these situations. That's why, as a collective front, have people in your corner that you can rely on. And there's many ways that you can do that. There's support groups, there's Al-Anon, there's Nar-Anon, there's a ton of different stuff that you can do. You can get involved with your church. Most churches that I know of have some sort of support group or counseling services that they offer for this type of stuff. And just do it. You have to, because it's very important. And that will help you keep going. It will help you keep going. A lot of times, parents, loved ones, they just get frustrated. They get so angry and upset. They just throw in the towel. And that doesn't do anything. If you get to that point, it becomes a lot worse. So I want to help you prevent from getting there. And the last thing is, and this kind of just wraps everything around, continue to work on you. That's the best thing to do. All of these things that I just described is ultimately working on yourself. And that is what we need to do. If we continue to work on ourselves, it affects all the other relationships around us. If we are healthy, if we are in a good place mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all the other situations around us tend to get better. I know when I first got clean, when I first got sober, and I did some deep work on myself, and I started to understand more about myself and my loved ones, and I became a good person, all my relationships became a lot stronger. And this isn't something that can happen overnight. It could take months, it could weeks, months, years, I don't know. But continue to work on yourself. Do all these things that I just suggested to you to do, and I don't know exactly how it works. I'm not some philosopher and, deep into this stuff. I just know what has worked for me over many years at this point, working with a lot of families, a lot of loved ones, a lot of addicts and alcoholics. And it starts with us. It ultimately does. It starts with us. How can I look at this situation from an overall view and see, okay, what can I do to improve myself that will ultimately improve the situation? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it gave you some sort of insight as to what you can do for your current situation. Ultimately, if you have questions, you can always reach out to me. You can find me on YouTube, obviously. We have a podcast, Real Recovery Talk. Reach out. Send me an email, tom@realrecoverytalk.com. Share this video with whomever you think it may be fit. And ultimately, let's help turn your mess into your message. Talk to you later.